بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد. As we continue the explanation of the Sharh al-Fatwa al-Hamawiyyah al-Kubra, Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah rahimahullah. As we continue the explanation of Hamawiyyah by the great Imam Abu al-Abbas Taqiyuddin Ahmad ibn Abd al-Halim ibn Abd al-Salam Taymiyyah al-Harrani Dimashqi rahimahullah, who died 728 after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. The time now is 7:25 p.m. Wednesday, October the 5th, 2022, where I think is now the 11th, if I'm not mistaken, of Rabi' al-Awwal. After Maghrib starts the new day, but technically it is Thursday night, the year 1443, after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. As we were discussing the matters, it says, as we were discussing, the Imam, you will find that Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah rahimahullah, we were discussing the matter, you'll find that we finished. You'll find that the great Imam, Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, that he brought the speech of the great Imam Ibn al-Majishun. We finished what he mentioned in regards to these great principles that he mentioned concerning our Lord and His beautiful names and His lofty attributes, subhanahu jalla sha'nu. You'll find that Ibn al-Majishun, he continues to say, he said, وَمَا إِنْكَرَتْهُ نَفْسُكَ وَلَمْ تَجِدْ ذِكْرَهُ فِي كِتَابِ رَبِّكَ وَلَا فِي الْحَدِيثِ عَنْ نَبِيِّكَ مِنْ ذِكْرِ رَبِّكَ فَلَا تَتَكَلَّفَنَّ عِلْمَهُ بِفِعْلِكَ أو بعقلك عفوا ولا تصفه بلسانك واصمت عنه كما صمت الرب عنه من نفسه فإن تكلفك معرفة ما لم يصف من نفسه فإنكارك ما وصف منها فكما أعظمت ما جاحد الجاحدون مما وصف من نفسه فكذلك أعظم تكلف ما وصف الواصفون مما لم يصف منها. You'll find that the great Imam Ibn Majishun, as he's been explaining these great, tremendous principles that we've been speaking about, which shows the position and the understanding of these great scholars of the past who lived during the period, or the blessed period, of the Tabi'in, those who found the Tabi'in who had taken their knowledge directly from the Sahaba, that this was their position in regards to the names and attributes of Allah, to let us know that this was the position of the greatest prophet and messenger to all humanity, Muhammad ibn Abdullah alayhi salatu wasalam. So, listen to what Ibn al-Majishun, the Shaykh al-Islam, brought this long speech by this great Imam, and he didn't even finish. As we've been talking about what he mentioned for the past 3 weeks, approximately 3 weeks. Ibn al-Majishun, he goes on to say, وَمَا أَنْكَرَتْهُ نَفْسُكَ وَلَمْ تَجِدْ ذِكْرَهُ فِي كِتَابِ رَبِّكَ وَلَا فِي الْحَدِيثِ عَنْ نَبِيِّكَ مِنْ ذِكْرِ رَبِّكَ فَلَا تَتَكَلَّفَنَّ عِلْمَهُ بِعَقْلِكَ. He says, and what yourself rejects or denies, he says, and you do not find its mentioning in the book of your Lord, nor in the authentic Sunnah of the Message of Allah upon your Prophet, of the mentioning of your Lord, do not overburden yourself with a knowledge by your intellect or by your mind. And do not describe Allah with your tongue. So he's saying, don't use your mind and don't use something that just sporadically came upon your tongue. Be quiet about it. Just as Allah also did not mention it, and He also, subhanahu, was quiet about the affair in regards to Himself. For verily your overburdening of a knowledge in which Allah did not describe Himself with, كَإِنْكَارِ كَمَا وَصَفْ, it's the same thing as you rejecting what Allah did describe Himself with, even though it's the opposite of what you did. He said, فَكَمَا أَعْظَمْتَ مَا جَحَدَ الْجَاحِدُونَ, just as you glorified of those who rejected and you affirmed it from what Allah affirmed of Himself and described Himself with, same thing, the opposite. Glorify the overburdening of those who described Allah by exceeding the bounds in which Allah did not describe Himself with. What does He mean? We talked about this before. We're going to explain this in detail, bit by bit, so everyone can understand. طيب, your father, the great Imam Muhammad ibn al-Jami rahimahullah, he goes on to say, وَمَا أَكْثَرَ هَذَا كالسلوب التي سمعتم طالب العلم السليم عندما يسمع بأن هالكلام اللفظي مخلوق وأن الله ليس في العلو نفسه تنكر لأن هذا ليس بخير بل هذا شر محض. He says you'll find that how much of abundance do we see from the people? He says such as the sulub. He says such as the type of matters you'll find that some of the students of knowledge who now indulge in. We're talking about those who are clearly upon what's correct he's talking about here in this context. He said, Al-Talib al-Ilm al-Salim, a true student of knowledge whose aqidah is intact and it's firm, and there's nothing of pollutants or perverted meanings or tainted meanings or corrupt ideologies in it. When he hears this type of speech, for example, هذا الكلام اللفظي مخلوق, that the speech of Allah Ta'ala, of His words are created, or that Allah is not above, what does in itself, what does it do? It rejects. It rejects and it what? Denies. And it finds this affair to be very ugly. So that's what you'll find Ibn al-Majishun is mentioning here. If you guys had your books, I would have loved that you guys had to figure this out. You have one? Tafadhal, get it. You guys have been learning from me for years. You know I don't like when people just sit in front of me. You know, either their fingers are not moving or they're not reading something along with me. I'll say it again. Listen to what Ibn al-Majishun goes on to say. وَمَا أَنْكَرَتْهُ نَفْسُكَ, which your self rejects. What does your self reject? Meaning, those students of knowledge or those who have studied the affairs of Aqidah or Creed, that their Aqidah is intact, has not been corrupted, either by ignorance or by perverted ideologies that has affected their belief, such as learning knowledge upon the improper people, which as a result of it, they started to now either deny affairs that Allah has affirmed for Himself, or they ascribe to Allah what He did not describe Himself with. That's what Ibn al-Majishun is mentioning here, to sum it up. So if you understand that point, then we can elaborate on the other matters that he mentioned. Does everyone understand that? Basically, I'll say it again.
You take from people who know.
Ibn al-Majishun, just wait a second. I'm sorry, Shaykh. Ibn al-Majishun is saying here, what yourself rejects. What does yourself reject? Either Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala affirmed for Himself an affair and the people denied it. That type of rejection for those people is in its proper place. For verily those people rejected what Allah affirmed for Himself. So yourself what? Detest that and reject it. Denies it. What are you doing? This is what Allah has said. Ibn al-Majishun said likewise the opposite. What Allah remained quiet about, that Allah did not say, similar to that, you need to glorify that affair and do not ascribe to Him what He did not ascribe to Himself. So he's saying, glorify both affairs, whether it be of that matter I just said first and the second. Is it clear, everyone? So that's in summary what he's saying here. So, a student of knowledge that have truly perfected their aqidah, have learned it, studied it, put it to practice, acted upon it, when they hear such as, for example, the words of Allah is created, your heart what? Rejects it, denies it, finds it evil, vilifies it, right? طيب. Such as when they hear the statement that Allah is not above, similar to that, and your nafs, yourself, tunkir, finds it evil, rejects it. And we know that this affair is not good, rather it's something that is what? Evil. It's absolute evil. Right, everyone? You'll find that Ibn al-Majishun, that he mentions this also, not only here in Hamawiyyah, by Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, but also you'll find the complete speech in the great book entitled Al-Ibana, fi Usul al-Diyana, by the great Imam Ibn Battah al-Ukbari, which inshallah, if I have the book, I have time to go to my storage, I couldn't get the book for you. But anyway, we have the whole text here. You'll find that Shaykh al-Islam mentioned an abundance of what the great Imam Ibn Majishun mentioned in this regard. So anyway, I wanted to read, do you think we should, we can stop here. We can keep going a little bit, I'm sorry everyone. Just to give everyone some good news, because I think we hear 90% bad news every day, right? Just to give some good news. I'm almost completed this book. This book, the first volume, is almost complete. This is the abundance of what I've taken, and this is what's left in the first volume. It's not that much. It's not that much left in the first volume. So the fact that all the different obstacles that was thrown at me, and all the satanic events that have transpired from the time I've started up to now, by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed me to almost finish the first volume, which is good. Which is a good thing. I don't think it's open. So, just on a good note, alhamdulillah, we almost finished the first volume. Just to put some positivity or positive news out there, so we can find some good to rejoice in. طيب, so let's keep going. So, سلك الشيخ الإسلام في هذا الكتاب مسلكا فريدا حيث سرد أولا الآيات القرآنية التي تثبت صفات الرب، ثم أتبع ذلك سرد الأحاديث الصحيحة، ثم آثار الصحابة. Alright, what is the methodology of Shaykh al-Islam in this book? What is his method? You'll find that he embarked upon a method that has not been similarly attained by a lot of those of the past. Rather, he did something in regards to Aqidah, especially in the characteristics of Allah that have been conveyed through revelation. What he did was, first, he brought all the verses in the Quran that affirmed the characteristics of Allah. Then he followed it up by bringing authentic narrations. Then Shaykh al-Islam brought narrations of the companions and the Message of Allah. Then he brought in order, after that, what? The great statements of the scholars who lived during those generations that were close to those generations. Meaning from the tabi'een or the tabi'een during their time, where they actually met some of them. So you'll find he went in order. He started from the Book of Allah, then the Sunnah Message of Allah, then the statement of the companions, then the statement of those who had taken knowledge from the companions, then from those scholars who taken it from them. And he put it in this order. وَصَرَدَ قَبْلَ كَلَامِ الْإِمَامِ أَبِي حَنِيفَةَ كَلَامِ ibn al-Majishun. Before the speech of Abu Hanifa, he brought the speech of the great Imam Ibn al-Majishun. Very profound, great speech, and then he explained it. If you notice, we've been explaining what Ibn al-Majishun mentioned for how many weeks? About 4 weeks. Right, everyone? What is befitting is that the students of knowledge memorize what Ibn al-Majishun mentioned and study it. If we're able to go over it again, I would revise it with everyone. But we have to keep going. So you'll find this great Imam, Ibn al-Majishun, was from the great scholars of the blessed prophetic city of our Messenger Sallallahu al-Madinah. During his time of what? The tabi'in. Those who were the tabi'in. He taken knowledge and lived during the time of those who followed the tabi'een, which is a great generation, which the Messenger of Allah praised. Of the good, of the khayriyah, of them being the best of those who not only learn knowledge properly, but they also apply it properly. And that's the reason why they attain the high status of what? Khayriyah, of being the best. Right, everyone? Who lived during that time period that the Messenger of Allah praised? During the tabi'een was Ibn Majishun. And he was teaching in the prophetic city of our Prophet ﷺ. So that's the reason why it was incumbent upon us to stop of seeing what was his belief and his position in regards to the names and attributes of Allah. So that's what we've been speaking about for the past 3 weeks or 4 weeks approximately, in order that Shaykh al-Islam show what was the position of first the Book of Allah, then the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah, then what was the understanding of the companions and those who came after them. And those who came after them, and then those great scholars who followed them in those footsteps exactly, in regards to the most greatest of all knowledge and the greatest of all affairs, which is learning the firm belief of what the Messenger of Allah ﷺ believed, and not only just the belief of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, rather all the prophets and messengers. All the prophets and messengers believed in these same affairs in regards to the names and attributes of Allah. These affairs were solidified. They did not differ in Allah had a hand and then another prophet came and said, no, Allah doesn't have a hand. That changed. That's all nonsense. The affairs of Aqidah are solidified. They never change. The belief of Muhammad ﷺ was the belief of Nuh. In regards to the names and attributes of Allah, the belief of Muhammad ﷺ was the belief of Prophet Noah. In regards to the names and attributes, the belief of Prophet Noah was his belief was also similar to the belief of what Prophet Ibrahim was upon in regards to the names and attributes of Allah. There is no different in that. The affairs in regards to the names and attributes of Allah are solidified. They will never change. What Allah affirmed in regards to himself then is the same belief in which the final prophet that was sent to humanity believed now, or believed during his time. And the same affair which is now obliged upon us to adhere to is the same affair that we're reading right now. And that Shaykh al-Islam brought his evidence to support this claim. That not only was this the belief of Muhammad ﷺ in regards to the names and attributes of Allah, this was the belief of all the prophets and messengers. That they all believed that Allah was above. And they all believed that his speech is not created. You will never find that any prophet or messenger believed that Allah's speech was created. And you will never find that none of the prophets believed that Allah was everywhere. You will never find these affairs in none of their or these type of inconsistencies in none of their messages. Is it clear, everyone? Is it clear what we're saying? Fine. So that's what the order in which you'll find when you want to establish a concrete evidence and proof that you follow these steps exactly. First, if you want to bring a claim, you bring your claim from the Book of Allah. From the Book of Allah Ta'ala, then the authentic Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu then the Athar al-Sahaba. Then after that, the affairs of the Tabi'een, and those who follow the Tabi'een, who are called, who everyone? The Tabi'een. Then those scholars after that who followed them. And from them, who was who everyone? Ibn al-Majishun. Ibn al-Majishun, who lived during the same time of the great Imam Malik, Ibn Anas al-Usbahi, who was also from the A'imma of what? The great scholars of Al-Madinah, the prophetic city of the Messenger of Allah. Right. So that's what you'll find of what we mentioned. ثم أتبع ذلك بكلام الإمام أبي حنيفة. You'll find that after we finish, we're going to read this in a moment, what Ibn al-Majishun mentioned, then you'll find Shaykh al-Islam is going to bring the speech of Abu Hanifa. He's going to bring his speech in regards to the Aqidah. Why? Because you'll find that Abu Hanifa also lived during that time. It was even mentioned that he reached some of the Tabi'een, and I think it was even mentioned, I'll return back to my reference, they said that he met a Sahabi, Abu Hanifa. We'll talk about that inshallah. But know for sure he did reach some of the Tabi'een, he did. Which we'll also mention in regards to what he said concerning the names and attributes of Allah. So let's finish what Ibn Majishun mentions. Then we'll read what Abu Hanifa mentions. Fine. So again, Ibn Majishun says, what yourself rejects, that you do not find its mentioning in the book of Allah, nor in the authentic narrations of our messenger. So yourself rejects what someone comes and affirms for Allah, Ta'ala, or what Allah did not affirm for himself. Your heart rejects that. If your aqidah is sound, if your aqidah is sound, your heart rejects that affair. For someone affirming or ascribing to Allah of what he did not affirm for himself, your heart rejects that. And if you want to switch it, the same thing. Your heart also rejects of denial of which Allah has affirmed for himself. For the one who rejects it, your heart what? Forbids that. And it rejects it. And it finds it to be a munkar, finds it to be evil. Fine. So this mentioning of what is in the authentic sunnah. I'll read what Ibn Majishun mentions again. وَلَا تَتَكَلَّفَنَّ عِلْمَهُ بِعَقْلِكَ. Which you did not find is mentioning in the book of Allah, nor in the authentic sunnah, the message of Allah, from the mentioning of your Lord. Do not overburden yourself with knowledge by your intellect. And do not describe Allah with your tongue. And do not remain quiet. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry, everyone. وَاصْمُتْ عَنْهُ كَمَا صَمَتَ الرَّبِّ. And what Allah did not mention, you do not mention it. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not mention, you do not mention it. Certain affairs that Allah remain quiet, and you what? Also remain quiet in regards to his what? His names and attributes. What did Allah remain quiet from? For example, the kayfiyyah. How Allah is, how his essence is, how he descends. Allah did not inform us of that. He was required from it, so what do we do, everyone? We remain quiet. Is it clear? So those are the affairs, for example, of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remain quiet from, which is binding upon us to also what, everyone? Remain quiet. So, he goes on to say, فَإِنَّ تَكَلُّفَكَ مَعْرِفَةَ مَا لَمْ يَصِفْ مِنْ نَفْسِهِ كَإِنْكَارِكَ مَا وَصَفَ مِنْهَا. For verily your overburden of knowledge of affairs in which Allah did not describe himself with should similarly be the same thing. He's basically saying the opposite. I already gave the examples a couple of minutes ago. He says you glorify Allah far above of what those who reject of what he's affirmed for himself. Glorify him above what those people do. Is it clear, everyone? فَكَذَلِكَ أَعْظَمْ تَكَلُّفَ مَا وَصَفَ الْوَاصِفُونَ. Also glorify and raise Allah far above the burdening of those who describe for Allah things that do not befit him as he did not describe himself with. We have many examples of this. For example, Allah Ta'ala created the earth and that which was between it in 6 days, and then he rested. That's a description of deficiency. They ascribe to Allah what he did not describe of himself. It's nonsense. It's absurd. How can Allah create the heavens and the earth? He has complete power, complete domination, complete strength, complete izzah, complete quwwah, complete ability, complete strength. Allah Ta'ala, nothing overtakes him of what? Exhaustion. That's a deficiency in regards to a deity, whether he being worshipped, and as far as being complete in every name and in every aspect. It's not that we believe that our Lord rests. That is a characteristic of perfection for the creation, not the creator. The creation needs rest. That's a characteristic of perfection as it pertains to them. But it's imperfection as far as the what? The deity or the creator of the heavens and the earth. Those are deficiencies in his ability and in his power and in his strength. Where Allah is complete in all his attributes. He does not rest, nor does he what? Nor does he need to gather himself together after he did something big. No. all those affairs we glorify. And we find it to be evil, and we raise and glorify our Lord far above those type of imperfections in regards to Him. That's perfection in regards to human beings, not perfection in regards to the deity who's complete in all His attributes and names. Is it clear, everyone? Okay. So let's complete to read. And like I said again, I wanted to reiterate, we almost finished the first volume of this book. It's almost complete. So after all the trials and tribulations and the evils that I had to endure since I started this book, we can inshallah see the fruits of it. So all the satanic things I had to endure, that shaitan tried to take me away from it, you see the efforts that Allah has blessed me where we can almost finish the first volume. May Allah continue that ni'mah upon us. Like, so, what time did it come in?
7:50.
Coming in 7:50? Tafadal. Ibn al-Majishun, he goes on to say, فَقَدْ وَاللَّهِ عَزَّ الْمُسْلِمُونَ الَّذِينَ يَعْرِفُونَ الْمَعْرُوفِ وَبِمَعْرِفَتِهِمْ يُعْرَفُ وينكرون المنكر وبإنكارهم ينكر وبإنكارهم ينكر يسمعون ما وصف الله به نفسه من هذا في كتابه وما يبلغهم مثله عن نبيه فما مرض من ذكر هذا وتسميته قلب مسلم ولا تكلف صفة قدرة ولا تسمية غيره من رب مؤمن وما ذكر عن الرسول أنه سماه من صفة ربه فهو بمنزلة ما سمى وما وصف الرب من نفسه. We'll just read quickly a little bit more what the great Imam Ibn al-Majishun mentions. He says, indeed, I swear by Allah, he said that the Muslims became honored and honorable. Azza al-Muslimun. They became A'izzah. They became Aziz. They became powerful and they became honored. By what? Those يعرفون المعروف. They attain knowledge of what is supposed to be known. They had attained knowledge of what is supposed to be known. What does it mean? What is every Muslim supposed to know? Their Aqidah. Every Muslim is supposed to know their Aqidah. They're not excused of its ignorance. As soon as a person embraces Islam, they're supposed, the first thing that they embark upon learning is affairs concerning the affairs that's tied in with Aqidah. So that's what he's speaking about. So he's saying that the Muslims became honorable by attaining knowledge of what they're supposed to what? What they're supposed to know. وَبِمَعْرِفَتِهِمْ يُعْرَفُ. He says, and by وَبِمَعْرِفَتِهِمْ يُعْرَفُ. And by them attaining knowledge, the affairs will become known. وَيُنْكِرُونَ الْمُنْكَرِ. They also forbade the evil. He says, and by their forbidding of evil, or for them forbidding evil, the evil will be forbidden. What does he mean? He's talking about commanding the good and what? Forbidding the evil. The greatest of commanding the good is number one, is attaining the knowledge of what is supposed to be known. You cannot command the good and you're ignorant of the affair. That's absolute absurd. No one can forbid a matter by ignorance. If you don't have knowledge of the affair, you can't command, nor can you nor can you forbid it. So he's saying here, the greatest of all affairs is learning the greatest of all knowledge. The knowledge of Allah and His names and attributes, which is your belief, your aqidah. So he's saying by that matter, the Muslims became honorable and powerful and dominant. By them attaining this type of knowledge that they're supposed to know. And forbidding what goes against that. Forbidding what opposes that. So, he's saying in regards to those who come and try to distort the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu jalla sha'nu, what will come as a result of it is that the Muslims will become humiliated if they don't find or forbade this type of what? Atrocity, which is speaking against the most vital and most important of all knowledge, which is concerning Allah and His name and His attributes. So the greatest of all commanding of good is that the people are encouraged to learn this, spread it, and also act upon it. And the greatest of all evils is what? Or forbidding of all evil. The greatest of all evils is affairs that taint the belief of one's belief. There's nothing greater of an evil than that. That's the greatest of all evils that needs to be forbade in order for the Muslims to attain honor. If those matters consist or they continue, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala humiliates those who do not carry out this great mission of what? Commanding the good and forbidding the evil in regards to the affairs that's connected with belief of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now listen to what Ibn al-Majishun goes on to say. He says, يَسْمَعُوا مَا وَصَفَ اللَّهُ بِهِ نَفْسَهُ مِنْ هَذَا فِي كِتَابِهِ وَمَا يَبْلُغُهُ مِثْلُهُ عَنْ نَبِيِّهِ. He says that they hear of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what He gives of descriptions of Himself, those attributes, in His book. وَمَا يَبْلُغُهُ مِثْلُهُ عَنْ نَبِيِّهِ. And also what reaches them, which is similar to that, meaning in the book of Allah, what also comes also in where everyone, the authentic sunnah, the message of Allah. You'll find that those narrations also confirm, which is in the book of Allah, in which you'll find that there's no Muslim whose heart will become sick by its mentioning, nor by the names that Allah is being called either in His book or in the authentic sunnah, the heart of any Muslim. Is it clear, everyone? وَلَا تَكَلَّفْ صِفَةَ الْقُدْرَةِ وَلَا تَسْمِيَةَ غَيْرِهِ مِنَ الرَّبِّ مُؤْمِنٍ. That you'll find you'll find the mu'min never exceeding the bounds, either in denying something or ascribing something of an description of any characteristic. Not sifatul qudra, wala tasmiyat ghayrihi min al-rabb. By giving him something of another characteristic or name of other than him, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has called Himself, you'll never find a mu'min doing that. Rather, what was mentioned upon the Messenger of Allah, أنه سماه من صفة ربه فهو بمنزلة ما سمى وما وصف الرب من نفسه. I'm going to stop here. He said you'll find, because we're going to mention the explanation of this inshallah tomorrow if I feel a little bit better. Just excuse me everyone, I'm not feeling well. A little bit under the weather. Usually it's the time where everybody becomes sick when the weather changes. But then after that, and once your body becomes acclimated to the weather, then you become extremely strong. So your body goes through this process to build up its strength to tolerate the cold weather that's coming. And then a person, inshallah, once your body adapts, it becomes stronger. So just excuse me everyone, because I'm a little bit under the weather. So he said, وَمَا ذُكِرَ عِنْدَ الرَّسُولِ, and what has been mentioned upon the message of Allah, أَنَّهُ سَمَّاهُ مِنْ صِفَةِ الرَّبِّ, in which the message of Allah ﷺ, that he called his Lord, the characteristic of his Lord is at the level of what the Sunnah, in which the message of Allah mentioned that, is at the same level of what Allah himself mentioned. Is it clear, everyone? Is it clear what I'm saying? Meaning that with the message of Allah, Allah mentioned the authentic Sunnah, because you'll find from the ignorance, brothers and sisters, this is a ni'mah that Allah has taught us these affairs. If you go to certain masajid, you'll find that they make some very strange statements. They say, oh, that's only in the Sunnah. You're like, what? It's astonishing that they say a statement like that. And you could clearly tell they have not been what? Properly educated. So Ibn al-Majishun is mentioning clear, what the message of Allah saying, the authentic Sunnah, is at the same level of what Allah mentioned in this book. There's no differentiation between the two. That one was on a higher level and that was a less level. Rather, they both what? They're both of the revelation where they're considered both as far as an equal in their level, especially in the affairs concerning or connected with Allah's names and attributes. You will never find a contradiction at all. Nor do you find, like we said, where a person or a Muslim who has truly educated himself with the proper knowledge that they will say, oh, that's only in the Sunnah. Whereas in the book of Allah. And even if you was to embark upon certain people that have been traumatized, I would say. Traumatized by what? By the corruption of the deviant sects from the Muslims, that they would come and say, oh, that's the Sunnah. Just bring me an ayah from the book of Allah. No. The first thing you're supposed to say, you say Muhammadur Rasulullah. Notice these affairs are connected with what? Basic principles. You say, no, I don't believe that. Bring something from the book of Allah. Do you say, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah? What does Muhammadur Rasulullah mean? What does it mean? Oh, he's just a prophet. In what? Just the book of Allah? Also in the authentic Sunnah. Do you believe that? Do you have to accept that as also what? A hujjah, an argument. Other than that, we don't indulge in these type of what? Debates. You cannot just take the book of Allah and then try to now what? Try to now revoke or reject the book of the Sunnah, the message of Allah, so you can try to win an argument. They go hand in hand. Allah Ta'ala has mentioned that in his book. Also that the authentic Sunnah, what the message of Allah was given, is also revelation. And in what Allah mentioned in his book, and what the message of Sallallahu mentioned in the authentic Sunnah, especially in those names and attributes, are at the same level. There is no differentiation between the two. And that's what Ibn al-Majishun is mentioning. And that's what the Muslims have to educate themselves with in order for the honor of the Muslims to be restored. Because humiliation and disgrace has come and descended upon the Muslims because of them finding the authentic Sunnah, the message of Allah, to be something of a lesser level. You'll find that certain Muslims make these statements. Oh, that's only the Sunnah, man. That's not really nothing. That's also from the signs of Allah. And that if you reject the Sunnah, the message of Allah, that's also an affair of disbelief. That's from the rejection of the ayat of Allah, in which Allah has set down for the humanity and God, for humanity and humankind to be guided properly by. So those are the matters you'll find that Ibn al-Majishun is mentioned here. Is it clear, everyone? So do not let from those who, if you go to certain masajid, they will say that to you. They will say, no, that's just the Sunnah. I want what's in the book of Allah. A'udhu billah. If you've been properly educated, that they're at the same level, who said that they're at the same level? Then you have to bring the ayat about the evidences and proofs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, that what he says and what the messenger says, what? Take it. What did the messenger say? Where do you find that? You'll find that in the authentic Sunnah. And you have to now branch and go in and give more details in regards to now explaining those affairs is connected with the Sunnah and how it's at the same level of the book of Allah. So is it clear, everyone? Fine. So the last thing we want to mention, again, matter of fact, we'll stop here, inshallah. We have to give a little bit more details about what Abu Hamid mentioned in his book called Fath al-Akbar. Any questions about the lesson? questions about the lesson? Hold on.
What was some of the same thing that you said? Ended off about how what the Prophet said. The Lord said, "Come here and here."
Absolutely. What Allah Ta'ala and what the Messenger ﷺ said go hand in hand. When you say Muhammadur Rasulullah, when you say the testimony, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, that's when you now have to go back to basics, because a lot of Muslims lack this knowledge. What does it mean in Muhammadur Rasulullah? What is it? Obey him or what he's what? Commanded. طاعته فيما أمر وتصديقه فيما أخبر واجتناب ما نهى عنه وزجر وأن لا يعبد الله إلا بما شرع. Obey him or what he's what? Commanded. Stay away from what he's what? Prohibited. Rather restrain from that thing. واجتناب ما نهى عنه وزجر وأن لا يعبد الله إلا بما شرع. That Allah Ta'ala not be worshipped except by what He legislated. By what He legislated. Where do you find all these affairs? What He commanded, what He prohibited, what He legislated as an affair to draw close to Allah by. Where do you find that? In the authentic Sunnah. That's the meaning of Muhammad Rasulullah. So you'll find that the Muslims who reject the Sunnah, they say, oh, that's only in Hadith. You'll find that there are Muslims out here that make these statements. They exist. Trust me, they exist here in Philadelphia. Oh, that's only in Hadith. We'll have to listen to that. Oh, that's only in the Sunnah. Bring me something from the Book of Allah. And the Messenger of Allah in authentic narration mentioned this, that this day will come. There is an authentic narration that the Messenger of Allah mentioned that there will come a day, but there will be a man that will be sitting on his couch, or he'll be sitting on his place of rest, and he say, whatever is in the Book of Allah, to give it to me. Whatever is in the Sunnah of the Messenger of Allah, leave that off. Reject it. We're not taking that. As a result of it, brothers and sisters, these type of understandings and corrupt ways, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala humiliates the creation as a result of it. These are major oppositions that as a result of it, Allah's wrath descends upon creation as a result of it. Rejection of the Message of Allah, the authentic Sunnah, and saying that it's worthless, so it's on a lower level, and that it has no value to the end of it. As a result of it, Allah's anger, His wrath had descended upon creation. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from His wrath. نسأل الله يعيذنا وإياكم من نزول عقابه وغضبه وسخطه وحلول نقمته. May Allah give us refuge from the descension of His wrath, the descension of His punishment, and the descendant of His retribution against creation. And this is what you see happening all over the world now. Absolute chaos as a result of major oppositions that are publicized without any shyness now. People brag about disobeying Allah now. And then everyone understands, why is civilization collapsing? Why is civilization collapsing? You see on a daily basis, people bragging about affairs that make Allah angry. Brag about it. Yeah, I'm doing this, I'm doing me. It has nothing to do with the creation. It has everything to do with your Lord. Is your Lord pleased with your act or not? Allah has already judged your act. It's in the Book of Allah and in the Sunnah. It's clarified. All we're doing is just conveying to you that affair is right or wrong. That's it. But Allah already judged your act. It's there. So you have to take your act and put it on the scales of what Allah says. And ultimately the affair goes back to your Lord, whether or not He's pleased with this, pleased with it. Has nothing to do with me, you, the du'at, the students of knowledge, the ulama. It has everything to do with your Lord. Is He pleased with your act or not? You answer it for yourself. And if Allah is displeased with it, leave it. Make tawbah. Rectify it. Before death comes. Because death is coming to everybody. Quickly now these days. So again, brothers and sisters, in regards to these matters of the authentic Sunnah, the message of Sallallahu and accepting His Sunnah, and staying away from those affairs that we mentioned and said during these days, people braggingly, boastfully, openly declare their praise of what Allah is angry with. That's what you'll find these days. Openly. And then people, like we said, have to realize why civilization is collapsing. When you openly display acts or indulge in acts that's displeasing to Allah and you don't care, it's as if you're saying, oh Allah, I know I'm doing this, but I don't care at the end of the day. Okay, as a result, what comes as a result of that type of statement and displayment of this type of indecency? What comes? What follows behind it? Look at society now. This is what happens. We know al-jaza' min jins al-amal. The repayment is due to the acts that you put forth. And once the people become, and they dig deep in themselves to say, I want to rectify my affairs, is the time where affairs will start to what? Change for the better. Anything else? We'll stop answering. Just excuse me, like I said, everyone, I'm a little bit under the weather. Tafadhal.
I was gonna say what he said along with what you said. You know, like how you were saying, like there's some people that reject the Sunnah, but also from the Shaykh, you know,
they also reject the Sunnah.
No, so it was you know, in one of the facilities in Baltimore that guys come in and teach or whatever. They're from them, and so you know, you ask them about, well, what about the hadith of the slave girl? That is to substantiate that Allah is above the throne, and they say stuff like all the hadith, they'll lie upon the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and say, well, that doesn't mean anything because he in that hadith he only asked her, who am I? That doesn't establish la ilaha illallah. But I was like, you know, how does that not establish la ilaha illallah? You know, in the ayat, وَلَقَدْ بَعْثَ فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا.
No, with your argument, you have to stick to the point.
No.
The hadith of Muawiyah ibn al-Hakam al-Sulami about the slave girl, that hadith, which is the Bukhari and Muslim, he clearly asks, where is Allah? Where is Allah?
No.
They said that she pointed up, and even though they tried, they said, no, she didn't point up. But she still affirmed the aboveness of Allah in the hadith. We tested it. They'd try to go for that one. And if they try to go for that one, this is how you combat it. Okay, we have the hadith of the Message of Allah has reached the level of tawatur, where there were thousands of Sahaba. That the Message of Allah sallallahu asked a question to the Sahaba. This has reached the level of tawatur. And the Message of Allah made it clear. He said, you will be asked concerning me on the day of resurrection. What will you say? He said, نشهد بأنك بلغت وأديت ونصحت. He said, we testify that you conveyed the message, you conveyed it to us, you carried it out in the most perfect way, and you gave us advice. No, this is the point. Listen, the Messenger of Allah took his finger and pointed up during the farewell pilgrimage. And he said, oh Allah, testify. Oh Allah, testify. Oh Allah, testify. So what's more clear than that? So if you don't use the hadith Mu'awiyah ibn Hakam al-Sulami, because they say, oh no, that hasn't reached the level of tawatur. This reached the level of tawatur. And that is more clear than the hadith Mu'awiyah ibn Hakam al-Sulami about the slave girl, the concubine girl. That's even more in depth and more clear. So what you got to say about that? And don't try to say, we're going to try to mess with the chains and this is weak. It's reached the level of tawatur. Thousands of Sahaba saw it. Thousands. So what you going to say about that? If the messenger pointed up, what do you want to answer to that? So I always, when they come to me with the nonsense, I'll tell them just like that, what you going to say about that? That's tawatur. Thousands of Sahaba saw it. It was the first and the last pilgrimage of Hajj of the Messenger of Allah. You can't deny it. Because the Messenger of Allah only made Hajj one time. That's it. And thousands of Sahaba saw it. He took his finger and pointed to the sky, to the heavens and said, oh Allah, testify, oh Allah, testify. So the Messenger of Allah didn't understand where Allah is. It doesn't make any sense. Is it clear? We'll stop here. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك